Today's guest on the Ownership Advantage is one of the most respected names in all of Round Rock, Mr. Will Peckham. He's not only a seasoned insurance advisor at Watkins Insurance Group, but also a former city council member, a small business advocate, and someone who's just been a real catalyst in my own journey inside this community. In this episode, we dive into Will's story, his deep connection for the community, and what every small business owner needs to know about protecting the business that they're working so hard to build. Let's get into it. Will, super excited to be here. Take us back to the beginning. What pulled you? So take us back to the beginning. What pulled you back to Round Rock? So after graduating from A&M, came back to Round Rock. Round Rock is home. Why Round Rock?
Well, you just said it. Round Rock's home. It's where I grew up. It's where I graduated high school. Not Round Rock High School, but Westwood. I know I catch a little bit of flack on that one, but that was when they split the high schools into two high schools, and now we've got a whole bunch. And the really easy answer is I grew up in Round Rock. I was riding my bike before I could drive, running around, grabbing Round Rock donuts, and just being in downtown Round Rock. And so when I graduated, I wanted to move my family back here. And that was really important for me. My parents were still here. And, you know, like all good parents, they put it in my head. Yeah, you should come back here. This is a great business. This is a family-owned business. Step in. This will be wonderful. And it was the greatest decision I ever made, was moving here and letting Round Rock be my hometown.
What do you love so much about Round Rock? In the time that you've been here, what stands out about this community that you really enjoy?
I'm going to say consistent leadership and opportunity is where I would really start. We've had some phenomenal leaders throughout the ages. We've always had the correct mayor at the correct time to deal with any kind of opportunities that have come along. But the real easy answer is Round Rock's got a special place. Everybody's always a can-do attitude. It's that special sauce, if you want to call it that, of everybody gets together, and it doesn't matter if you just moved here recently. You've got a great opportunity. It's like, come on, come with us. Let's go create something great. And I just love that, how accepting Round Rock is.
Speaking of leadership within this community, you've served on city council. You've been on and are part of many boards and different nonprofits and things like that. What fuels your desire to give back in so many different ways?
That kind of goes back to family. Real easy on that one is my parents instilled in me, and I'll use Round Rock as a big example. Round Rock was phenomenal to us and our family business and where I am now, and how it can help our kids and grandkids now that I have those, which is awesome. But the real easy answer is it was always just giving back. We were lucky enough to have a little bit more, and we wanted to help others. And my parents just instilled that in us. And honestly, I'll say it's real easy. How many times have you given a gift to somebody else, and the sheer joy you get from it is just amazing? You're not getting anything back, you're not doing anything, but it's making our community better. And I'll say a little bit selfishly, I may get in trouble for this. I wanted my kids to be here, just like my parents did. I wanted my kids to be around this area and grow up, because I don't want to have to move where my grandkids are. And I didn't want to have to leave this community. And we're lucky enough that our kids are around here and our grandkids are around here now. And so it's been a great way to be. And, and we just get in the car and drive 15 minutes and we're with the kids and grandkids.
Man, I love that so much. And it's such a powerful impact, with the family connection and things like that, and being able to have that here. When we think of so much community involvement and community service, right? Being able to do these different things. You've done so much over such a storied career of this, right? How do you believe that that's actually changed you? When you look back at, when you started in the community, started doing more of this kind of stuff to where you are today, how has this service changed your outlook, or just changed kind of how you operate as an individual within the community?
Honestly, I gotta say, I don't get to take a lot of credit for that. I have some phenomenal mentors that helped me along the way, that put their arm around me, the Charlie Culpeppers, the Nancy Rabbs of the world, that were so influential in Round Rock. And, and then I would say my peer group, the Rit Baseys, the Ryan Therrells, the Brian Sellers of the world, that have all been involved, the Stacy Bryans, that we all collectively worked and wanted to help each other along the way. And now we've got that next generation. You, Dina Kavanaugh, Leah Clark, that are all coming along, that are making their own mark. And I think that was the real important aspect of just being involved, is you wanted to help your friends and wanted to help make the community better. And when you all do it together, it sure is a lot of fun.
I really love talking about this topic, and I know you and I go a couple years back now, and give each other a hard time and whatnot. But I don't think you give yourself enough credit, in this community and in these types of conversations. So I'm going to toot your horn a little bit and say, when you look back at the mentors that have mentored you and helped you become what you are today in this community, hopefully this, but you are that person for many of us now today. And it's really fun to kind of see that, and then hearing your story and knowing how you've gone through that process from being mentored to now kind of mentoring. How has that transition been? Have you noticed that transition? Have you noticed where you've really kind of taken into the mentorship role, and you are taking a lot of different folks within the community under your wing? How has that felt as you've kind of made that transition?
First off, I haven't really noticed that transition that much, I'll say. Besides, I have a lot less hair now than I used to. It used to be dark and now it's white. Part of it's just life lessons that you've learned, things that we maybe didn't succeed at when all of a sudden the first ascend class, and we're working with that, and we get, the type B election, and we don't get it across the finish line. And we've got to come back to the future and do it again. And in a way, because that didn't work, it worked out better because we got the sports center to come along with it, with the hotel tax. And so all these, different elections that we maybe looked at or did. But I know I'm skirting your question because I'm going to come back to it a little bit. In that you just find great people you want to help out. And I mean, a lot of that is that you pass it along. Like, I talked about Charlie and Nancy and, Scott Swindell. Scott Swindell was a great mentor of mine. And, he's not that much older than I am, but he was kind of in between that next generation, that gap. But honestly, I can say this about all of those. I mean, Nancy loved that next generation, and she really fed into them. And Charlie does the same thing. He's still doing it to this day. And you look at the accomplishments of what he's done and what Nancy have done. And these are all great individuals that just tried to make the community better. And by the way, I can't take any credit along the mentoring because honestly, I just pass on some lessons that either number one, I heard from my parents or these great mentors and leaders, but also a lot of it is my peer group. And I think one of the things maybe we don't talk about a little bit enough is we're going to stumble and fail sometimes. We got to talk about those things because I think in our careers, as much as I don't want to gratify failure because we all want to succeed, but a big part of that is learning from our failures. It's never a stopping point. It's just, okay, that's one way that didn't work. Let's try to figure out a different way that it will work. And I feel like maybe that next generation, that even the high school kids that we're talking to or the college kids right now, don't understand that failure is okay. And again, I don't want to gratify failure. It's about learning life's lessons. And I think that that's an important aspect that we shouldn't lose sight of. So I hope I explained that well.
I think I'm really glad that you brought up the, what can we learn from failures, things like that. I'm a big believer that all of us should fail. Like, it's the only way we grow is taking on maybe a little bit more than we think is possible today and having to grow into that. And, I think we've had some conversations on this in the past, but, has there been a time, especially in community leadership, things like that, where you've taken on maybe a little bit more than maybe should have or had the skill set or knowledge for quite yet and, had to grow through that process?
I'm going to say exactly. That was the first year of the Ascend program. All of a sudden we look at this and we're going to go, hey, we need to change how our Type B corporation's done in the city and it's got to go to the voters. So we're going to let that be y'all's class project. And we really had to figure it out on our own. And we had to figure out how to run a political campaign. What is a general purpose PAC? And how do you file the paperwork for that? And I'm going through some of these things that we were all, as a peer group, trying to figure out and do. And we did. And then we didn't win the election. And by the way, it was under 30 votes, I'm going to say, that we didn't win that one by, which is really tight in a pretty good election. But the knowledge we gained from that time frame allowed us to come back through with some bond elections and being a part of an entire community. And it also let us know where we're at. And the good news, sometimes, if you don't know what you don't know, you might be able to accomplish something. Because you don't know what you can't do.
Isn't that interesting?
And like I said, I got to give a lot of credit to Ryan Therrell and Amanda Keeter on that one. Those two helped set that program up, and I think it has provided a lot of benefits to this community for future leaders with knowledge.
It's really fun to see people grow through discomfort, right? Being put into that phase of little bit beyond what maybe they were used to, different things like that, and having to grow. And for a lot of the listeners of this particular show, they're small business owners. They're jumping in. Maybe they've started the business, bought the business, and they're growing through those next phases. And I promise for everyone, we are getting to a little bit of insurance and different things like that we're going to be talking about. But I think it's important to kind of talk through this story and understand the connection between business and the local community. So you've been a part of the small business world for a long time, even before joining Watkins and becoming an insurance advisor. Talk to me a little bit about what you see from the connection point of small businesses, especially small local businesses here in Round Rock and the greater kind of Williamson County and Austin area, and what impact they can have on the community that we know, love, and continue to serve here.
I think you just said it all. I mean, part of it is a lot of these things don't happen without the business community being involved. And of course, when you talk about the business community, you're really talking about small business, because those are the individuals that are the leaders, that are stepping up, that are taking chances, that are doing all these things that we need help with. But I think the big aspect of this is you want to give back. Does it help your company? I think in the long run it does, because people get to know you. They get to know what type of person you are. They get to know how you interact on a business level because of what you're doing in the community. But part of that is just being a good servant and being a part of a community, because, high tide rises all boats. Whether it's in economic development, whether it's in small business, with community, if you're making your community better, people are moving here. People want to be a part of that. They want to get here. Hey, that's a great place to live, work, and play, and I want to be a part of that. And so I think that's a big aspect of all of this is what type of community do you want to have? Be a leader within it, and as a small business owner, that affords you that opportunity. The side benefit, like I say, in the long run, I don't think it's a short run issue here. Long run, you build relationships, you build a network, and all of a sudden, your small business is doing well. Part of that is your reputation within the community, but also I think the other part of it is, hey, I want to go there because they're doing a lot of great things. They're helping out our local buy, or they're helping out, the serving center. They're helping out Candlelight Ranch. All these kind of things that really make our community better, and it gravitates toward them.
In a way, you could look at it as a stronger community reduces some of the risk that a small business owner may have, right? The employees are stronger. They're more committed to the community. They're less likely to turn over, which I know is an issue with some businesses, being able to retain or even recruit great employees. And that's something that we have a lot of strength in here in the community is when the community is really strong, we attract really great people to come to it, which means we've got a great employer base or employee base to tap into. But that thought of reducing risk, I'm going to use that as kind of the transition point to talk a little bit about insurance and another way to mitigate risk within a business. Now, you've got a lot of experience here, and I want to just start by asking, when you're talking to a lot of the small businesses that you work with, what are some of the biggest overlooked things when it comes to insurance that can cause risk within any small business?
I will say the biggest aspect is really understanding your policy. What are the endorsements? What are the exclusions on your policy? What kind of conversation are you having with your insurance advisor? Because I think all of these things are the most important aspect is that relationship. The carriers, as they move through, they've got their appetite, what they want to do. When you have that really good relationship with your insurance advisor, they're going to make sure that it's fitting you. Because here's the whole point. It's about risk mitigation. It's about risk transference when we're talking insurance. And it's when you have that bad day, am I going to lose my whole company? And the answer is no. It's going to be a little bit hard right now, but we're going to be able to build this back up and you're going to be okay. And that's the conversation you want to have at the end of the day is why is it set up this way? Now, I'm going to say this because I think everybody deals with it. Price, value, all those things come into play. But as long as you're informed as a small business owner and you're the one deciding how much risk you're willing to transfer or not transfer is the most important aspect. And price is going to come into that. whether it's, do we take that additional cyber policy? Do we not? Does it affect us? Does it not affect us? Do we think we've got enough procedures in place to cover that? Whether it's general liability, all of these things and how all these pieces come together, that's the most important part, is are all these things working in conjunction to really protect you, and do you have a good understanding? I think the more knowledge that my clients have, the better it is for both of us and a better understanding. Now, some it's going to be, hey, you're the expert in this field, just tell me, am I good or not good? Okay. But the real answer is, I want to have that conversation. That's the most important aspect of it.
One of the questions I wanted to ask is, how frequently should small businesses be looking at their policy or having conversations with their insurance agent, right? Like how often should that be? And, you just mentioned, as the expert, you know a lot of it. That's fantastic. And most of the time I'm going to just default to, I trust you. You got this. Just tell me what I need and we'll move on. But that being said, you can't be in the business every single day. The business continues to evolve and change, especially if it's in a growing environment. We know the world today is very different and very fast paced, right? From political environment to technological advances and different things that are in business that have never been there before. How often should a business owner be having a conversation with their agent to take a look at, am I still covered? Am I still, I just grew by 50% in the last 6 months and I've added 20 employees. I don't know, just make numbers there, but does my coverage have to change? Do I need to do something different? What are some of those trigger points that would prompt a business owner to go, I should probably be looking at these and understanding if I'm still mitigating the risk that's required in my business?
Okay, I'm going to answer this question in a couple of different ways, because one is, every one of those markers is different for each business. I'm going to say, your business, and whoever that small business owner is, they know their business, they know where things are changing. I would say the first issue is having a very good conversation at the outset, understanding your agent and having that good yearly conversation before the renewal and moving through, what are we trying to do? What's changed from last year? What needs to be updated? But then if you've got this fast-paced growth business happening, pick up the phone and call your agent. Have a conversation with him. Hey, we just added 20 employees. How's this going to affect me at the end of the year? Hey, that's a great question. And the real answer is, with all things, like all small business owners, you're paying an estimated premium. This is a ballpark. A lot of times audits happen at the end of the year for a true up, and it can be covered within that gap. But also, if you're growing so fast and getting these large numbers in there, you may want to have a conversation with the carrier, because there might be some latitude with different rates that are happening within that. And they may not be able to change for that year, but maybe next year, but preparing, but just having a conversation. So I will say, if not a lot's changing, not a lot's fluctuating, probably a good yearly conversation is good. I know I've got some clients I meet with quarterly, just because their numbers are changing a lot and they want to make sure that they're getting exactly where they need to be, or they've got drivers changing, they've got vehicles changing, all of these kind of different things that are moving. Hey, we're thinking about a renovation. How am I going to be covered on that? Do I need a builder's risk policy? Something along those kind of lines. And if something's changing, I pick up the phone and call.
There's the approach there that I know that you just live and breathe, and that's the relationship that you build with your customers and your clients. You exude that in so many different areas of your life, but I appreciate it so much because, one of the things that I really dislike with really any industry, but I know from a personal line, insurance lines, type of a situation, I've had insurance agents in the past where they sold me on the policy and then I never heard from them again, right? Something actually came up. I'm like, I don't know, to file a claim. I don't know who to go talk to. Like, I need some help. I need some guidance through this because I'm not in the right mindset to actually take care of these types of things. And, I think it is really important to have your team in place. Your insurance team, your CPA team, your attorney, those individuals that really help you look after your business, that want that relationship. And I know you do that very, very well.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I do think in this industry, the relationship is what matters. Because from my side, I love being a part of all of these different businesses. You get to learn something new every day because somebody's doing something different. They're making our world better. They're helping. And you're just like, this is great. Tell me about your business. It's going to be wonderful. That's the neat part from our side. That's what kind of drives me from that small business side. You got to have that relationship. You need to have it. I'm going to toot our own horn for Watkins a lot. We've made some investments within our team that I think are vital. And one of those is a claims department that helps walk next to you as you're going through this process. Still going to be the carrier that decides everything. It's still going to be the carrier that you're moving through with the adjuster and everything else. But it's just a little extra relationship there to go, hey, let's have a conversation. Back to all great things. If you have a good conversation, you're getting better outcomes.
I love that so much. The conversations, the humanality of these conversations in general, right? I've talked to various different industries, and AI usually comes up in some way, shape, or form. And this will probably be the only piece I'll put it in here. But I think it's so important that in this next phase of the world where there's going to be a lot more automation, there's going to be these conversational agents that we can go talk to that are all AI driven. That human component, those real tangible relationships where we can meet up in person, I think that's going to have such a stronger impact and meaning as we move into this next phase.
I hope so. I think AI is going to be great across the board for a lot of different industries and a lot of different aspects and efficiencies and things that are happening. But I'm like you. I hope we don't lose sight of those relationships, because that's really what drives it. And also the comfort level. You as a small business owner sitting there going, is this all real right? Is this right where it should be? And that relationship helps alleviate some of that pain. And also, by the way, I'm just going to say this. Insurance is never top on the list till it is. And even then, it's maybe only third on the list when it's a priority. Otherwise, it's 453rd on the list. And that's okay. It should be. It should be one of those things where you don't have to think about this. You need to be thinking about your business and how to make it successful. This is just more, are we okay if a bad day happens?
Yeah. I can't stress that enough. As having been in a business where we've actually had to file claims on different things within our business insurance coverage, like, you definitely want that in place before anything actually happens. You may not think of it now. It's like, oh, these situations will never happen or take place or different things like that. But then on the off chance that they do, not being covered is a heck of a lot more painful than having those conversations up front and saying, this is what's really needed.
Well, and back to your point on throughout all of this, if you're informed and you have a good understanding of what you're willing to take on, that's okay. It's just making sure that you have knowledge. I'm willing to take that day on when it happens. Otherwise, hey, maybe let's get a little help here.
Yeah. So let's talk one more thing about the insurance side of things. A little bit more tactical for the audience. We were talking a little bit about this before we jumped on here, but liability versus like property and casualty. For businesses that maybe don't fully understand the difference between the two, is it one or the other? Is it a mix of both? Like what does that actually look like, and kind of break that down for us?
Sure. When we talk about a lot of different policies, and of course we're talking at a really high level, every policy is different. I don't want to get in trouble with anybody on that particular. But when we start talking about these two, liability, for the simple, easy answer is like your slip and fall. Somebody got hurt. They need some kind of help with that. Property's over here. Both these are different types of coverage that will be within your policy. And so sometimes it's not just, hey, I need insurance. Okay, well, what are you trying to cover? Back to, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
What are we, completed projects? Are we talking about, builder's risk? Are we talking auto? Are we talking, there's all these things that come into effect. Pollution. And some of these things may not be within your realm, but they may be an issue that you need to get addressed. And that's where you have a good conversation. You figure out, where is that risk? What does that look like? And so I think that's a big important aspect. I hope I explained that a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, simple breakdown for business owners that haven't really given a whole lot of thought to it, but being able to really kind of understand what that is. And to your point, it comes back to have the conversation and figure out what's actually needed, and then solve the problem that we're actually trying to solve versus just making a blanket statement over things. So I really appreciate that. So to kind of bring this back kind of full circle, I want to come back to a little bit on the community leadership side of things, but I want to tie it into the small businesses. So for small businesses out there, what advice would you give to other business owners who want to contribute more to their local community?
I would say the first thing is really sit down and have a conversation about how your business fits within the community. Because as much as we all want to give, there's limited time, there's limited resources. You can't be everything to everybody. And so I think the real aspect is, where do we want to make an impact? What's important to my heart? What's important to my business? How do we fit within that community? And once you figure that out, let's dive in and start making an impact in that area. And I think that's the big important part. Is it with kids, like the Y? Or, is it the serving center? There's different areas that can happen within our community, and I think that's a different answer for everybody, as I've been non-committal all day with most everything.
I want to, something that I know we've talked about a lot, and you kind of mentioned it in that answer there, but the resources available, right? Not everybody has all the time to go in and volunteer and give back and things like that, but maybe there's a financial resource, or maybe there's some other way that they can back, or vice versa. I don't have any money today. I can't just go give a bunch of money and be able to do it that way, but maybe I have time, or I know people who have time. Maybe talk a little bit about kind of what you've seen in the past for those that want to get involved, but they don't have all the resources, but they might have one or two that they can give back on.
Sure. I mean, I think when we talk about it, we're talking about three different things. We're talking about time, talent, and treasure. Okay? Everybody's got different amounts of time they can give. They've got different expertise they can give, their treasure. And then their treasures, funds that they can give, and then their talent. So moving through all three of those things, it's what do you have to give? I hope he won't mind, but he's a really good friend. Rit Basie, I'm going to use him as an example right now. Rit had been in our community for a while, was really starting with his company and was doing a lot of work. And he goes, I just don't have that treasure to give right now. But what I do have is time. And he started volunteering. And then he becomes this phenomenal leader within our community because he just kept giving his time. And then all of a sudden the resources came later. And he had more funds to give these things. And I just use him as a great example. But I mean, there's countless in our community that do that. And I really think the first thing is, do you have time? Is it maybe a Saturday? I'm a little bit away from the office that I can give. I will tell you, for me, it was about the Rotary Club. And it was finding that great avenue of selfless service and giving back. For us, it was Special Olympics. We had a local meet here that was just phenomenal. I wish we could still have it. Certain rules change in aspects. And we ran it for 15 years. You talk about giving back. I got more out of that day than they did. It was just great. I would just say, just find your niche and start giving with what you can. And it'll keep growing as time goes on. So I hope I answered that well.
You did. And I think it's such an important thing that I think a lot of folks just need that reminder of, on finding what you can give and where that talent fits best, right? I think of even myself as an example. I'm not out there doing a lot of kind of what I don't know, traditionally comes to mind when you think of just like volunteering on like a Saturday or something else like that. But I try to find different ways that I can plug in and use the skills and the knowledge that I have. And I know that there's many others in the community that I've seen, they have their passion about different things or things that they really have a skill set around. They give that skill set back in form of time, in form of treasure and things like that. And it's kind of cool to see the variety of ways to be able to give back and become a deeper part of any community that you're a part of.
For sure. Well, and by the way, you give a lot back. We appreciate it too. As you chair our Ascend program.
Well, I appreciate that. So, Will, as we kind of start to bring things to a close, I've got kind of two questions that really more about you that I think would be kind of fun to get your perspective on. And the first one is success. How do you define success? And as kind of a secondary answer to that, how has that evolved over time?
I'll tell you, the first easy answer is making the world better around you. That's success. Making it better for your kids, making it better for your grandkids, whatever that is. To me, I always use this one analogy. Alan McGraw said it one time, and I just love it. And I know he got it from somebody else, and I'm not going to quote it correctly, but he goes, we're planting trees that we're never going to see the shade from. And to me, that's success. That's the biggest part of it. And has that evolved over time? Yeah, without question. As you get older, you start thinking about, I want to leave things a little bit better. Sometimes when you're younger, it's just, how do I make my mark? How do I leave my mark on this community? And over time, you figure out, if I just keep working in a positive manner, that's going to happen. And I don't need to worry about that. And I want to say, Round Rock's been very successful at that. We don't care who gets the credit, because it's always a group effort.
I really like that. That's a really cool definition of what success looks like. So what's next for you? What are you excited about as you continue to grow through the remainder of your community career, your business career? What's on the horizon for you that you're looking forward to?
It's your generation of leaders that are coming along. I'm really excited to see what you're going to be able to do for our community. That's the neatest aspect. Where's the next big thing going to come from? Where's that next big idea? And your peer group of leaders is doing such a phenomenal job. I can't wait to see what Round Rock looks like in 15 years from now. So that's what I'm pretty excited about.
Well, it's all on the backs of these amazing people that came before us. That is definitely for sure. As I know you've said from the generations that came before you. That is really cool. I'm excited for that. So, Will, for those that are listening, that are watching, that want to connect with you, that want to meet you in the community, that maybe have some insurance needs and would much rather have somebody who has some really strong relationship and actually wants to connect with them, where can they go for more information, or how can they get in contact with you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, and if not, you can reach out to Watkins Insurance. I'm on the website, and you can find me there and send me a note, and I'd be happy to just have a conversation, whether they need some insurance or not. Just get to know somebody. I always enjoy a good day.
Amazing. Well, I will put all of that in the description for the conversation below. Please, I'm going to encourage everybody that's listening, take a minute and just go reach out. At very least, say, Will, saw you on the podcast. Great conversation. Just wanted to connect. But, being here in the local community, it's been really cool to see different connections and things like that. So if you're in the audience, you're listening to this, please reach out, say hi to Will, and maybe have some insurance questions or how you can get involved in this particular community, all that kind of thing. So, Will, thank you so much. This has been absolute pleasure. I know I'm going to have you on a couple different times in the future here, but this has been a pleasure, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, thank you very much. And I really appreciate you wearing a maroon shirt just for today.
It's almost like we coordinated it.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Of course.